latest immigration news. Let's get into it, friends. Let's talk about the latest in immigration. I haven't talked about those news for a long time because I've been busy with court hearings, stuff like that, going back and forth with court. I got some time today and we're going to dive into it, and we will talk a lot about the state of our bills and what's really happening. Let's start with this great news. The first one is that USCIS extends evidence of status for conditional permanent residents to 24 months with pending Form I-751 or Form I-829. Remember, the Form I-751 is the form that someone who has been married and has gotten a conditional green card, they use that form to remove condition on residence. And then the Form I-829 is petitioned by investor to remove conditions on permanent resident status. So now that we know what's going on is that usually they used to give 18 months to accommodate this processing time of the Form I-751 and the Form I-829, but because it's taking longer to get to those forms, so they're extending to 24 months. Okay, basically what's gonna happen is conditional permanent residents who properly filed the Form I-751 or the Form I-829 will receive a receipt notice that can be presented with their Form I-551, the permanent resident card, also known as the green card, as evidence of continued status for up to 24 months past the expiration date on their green card while their case remains pending with USCIS. That's good because at that point you're still working, you're still doing everything until the case gets adjudicated, until the case gets a final say. 24 months, it's a long time to wait. Of course, you want to get your permanent green card because that is conditional that you will have, but at least you have time. It has been extended so that you don't get out of status. Basically, that's the purpose of it, for you not to get out of status. Okay, and then it says here as a reminder, conditional permanent resident who plan to be go outside of the United States for 1 year or more should apply for re-entry permit by filing the Form I-131 application for travel documents. Because if you go for more than 1 year, remember there is an assumption that residency has been abandoned. So that's why it is important that you file the Form I-131. I've talked about those subjects before, but really this is great news. Okay, let's move on now to what's happening with let's move on to another great news, okay, before we go to the bad one, because there's always bad news with those immigration people. Anyway, ICE announces new online scheduling tool for non-citizen check-in appointment. Remember, when somebody is, of course, a non-detained person, and they have to check with their pretty much release on bond, they have to check with ICE all the time. So now they can schedule their own appointment, and it's much easier. It just makes the process much easier. Pretty much you can go ahead and go to www.ice.gov, check in. So that's great news. USCIS Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is ICE, announced today a new web-based bilingual, which is so good, and smartphone compatible appointment scheduler for non-citizen called the ICE Appointment Scheduler. Okay, available at www.ice.gov/check-in. The launch of this tool will allow non-citizens to schedule their required check-in. Remember, gotta check in with ICE. If you have been released on bond, that's just proper procedures, or you have been on parole or basically on some type of probation, that's when people really check in with ICE. This is great. That make it easier. That's about it. So now let's talk about this immigration problem. Before we get to the last point of this immigration problem, let's talk about what's happening with this form I-800 for Niger. USCIS announces that it will not approve the form I-800 for Niger. This is the form that people use for adoption under the Convention of Hague, okay, Hague Convention on Protection of Children and Cooperation in respect to an inter-country adoption. So what's happening is that Niger has been really part of Hague. Is now part of the Hague Adoption Convention, which pretty much people can go and adopt children. But unfortunately, what's happening is that the DOS, the Department of State, has determined that it will not be able to process Hague Adoption Convention cases coming from Niger because Niger does not have yet the necessary infrastructure to carry out its responsibilities under the Hague Adoption Convention. Maybe later on, Nigeria will have the necessary infrastructure to carry out its responsibility under the Hague Adoption Convention, but for now, USCIS will not take that petition. That's bad news for today. And then now let's go to the last news. Pretty much just reflect on what's going on with immigration, the bill in general. When we talk about immigration, pretty much everybody's waiting to know about this bill. Okay, this article says Plan Z for immigration. Let the state sort it out. So what's going on is they're saying that Congress can't solve immigration problem. Why are they saying that? It's because if we look at history, okay, since Ronald Reagan, there hasn't been any major immigration reform. In the 90s, we saw a little bit, a piece here, a piece there with Bill Clinton, but there hasn't been anything major since Ronald Reagan. 46 years later, we're still on Plan Zero. So this person is pretty much saying that, well, let the states handle it, because that's the Plan Z, because we tried Plan A coming with the immigration. I'm gonna leave the link for this article because I already read it. Basically what they're saying here is like the Plan A was for the Democrat to come with an immigration reform, right? It always failed because the Republican will come with their own comprehensive immigration reform, and then the Democrat will not vote for it. And then when they say, let's compromise, Plan C, let's compromise, always fail. Plan D is like, well, let's go piece by pieces. For example, what's happening with the budget reconciliation? Let's go piece by pieces and put something into the budget reconciliation. And that one too, you have to get the agreement from the parliamentarian. You have to draft the language. And quite frankly, now they're talking about 3.5 trillion is a lot. They're scared about inflation. They're scared about printing out a lot of money. So it looks like really that thing too is not going nowhere. I don't want to be negative, but I'm just saying from what we're saying. And this person is saying, well, let the state handle it. It's coming with a proposal that was done before, but nobody has, it went nowhere. But it's relevant today because remember, they say Congress has passed major reform under President Ronald Reagan in 1986, 46 years late. And then a series of tunes up in the 90s. That's when Bill Clinton was in power. And then after 2007, paralysis set in conservative. Basically, it's emblematic because they talk about the country inability to secure its border. And then for liberal, they talk about inability to deal humanly with millions of immigrants. But nobody really comes with a solution, okay? So now we are going, they're talking about, well, let the states handle it. Okay, that's what I was talking about. Plan A, comprehensive progressive reform, will not work. Plan B, comprehensive conservative reform, will not work. Plan C, compromise, should work but has failed time and time. Leaves us with Plan D, E, and F, which is piecemeal reforms for groups such as dreamers, farm workers, and the kind of patchwork changes that congressional Democrats were seeking to include in their budget reconciliation package this fall. But remember, there are a lot of doubt and concern based on the amount of 3.5 trillion. So some are saying that, well, this is a lot of money. They are concerned about inflation now. So it really gives us a pretty much like a heads up of what's going to happen with that budget immigration bill in the budget reconciliation. So that's why we come to the Plan Z, which says that in 2019, the Representative John Curtis, a Republican from Utah, introduced what he called the State Sponsored Visa Pilot Program Act. Okay, it will allow a new avenue for immigration by authorizing states to sponsor people for 3 years with renewable work visas. I believe that if you really read this visa pilot program, well, it's not really like you're gonna get a green card, but at least you get a work permanent work visa, not permanent, 3 years work visa, renewable, and then advanced parole. You can travel outside of the US, which is kind of something, instead of just waiting there with no plan at all. That's what he called the Plan Z. The bill will fund no consport, and there were no co-sponsored and never came up for debate. That was in 2019. But Curtis told this news anchor today that he intends to reintroduce it in the current Congress. And the reason why, because Congress has failed, but let's give the power to the state to handle its own immigrants the way they can. So that's just something to look at it, because really, where are we going? I don't know. Can we wait for the end of September to know? Of course, we're still gonna wait, because it's only September 3rd. But until then, really, I don't see any movement. A lot of discussion, a lot of negotiation, but nothing formal, because everybody's raising concerns about these 3.5 trillion bills. Well, that was it for today, friends. Please go ahead and share, subscribe. And you haven't subscribed, because we only have 20 people left so that we can go ahead and do those live sessions. Come on, people. Why are you stingy with that subscribe button? Go ahead and please share, subscribe. Don't forget to comment below. Bijoux.ngwanda here, immigration lawyer in the DC metropolitan area. Until next time, bye-bye.